I'd like to welcome everybody to tonight's webinar on student loan forgiveness. Since the presidential campaign of 2020, we've had a lot of talk about the national crisis in student loan debt growing pretty out of control for all Americans, and especially coming out of the pandemic. So, we've had a lot of attempts to lower that burden on federal student loan debt. And while many attempts have been made, most recently on June 30th, the Supreme Court blocked the student loan forgiveness programs. And today we'll be discussing that for today's workshop. And we'll also take on any questions on how that may affect student loan borrowers, especially first-generation immigrants, minorities, those attending college for the first time in this country. And we want to ensure that this is a place where you all have all the information so we have minimal debt and the best college fit possible. To the advisors.
All right, thank you. Let's move on to the decision that came out the day right after affirmative action. On June 30th, the Supreme Court blocked the student loan forgiveness program proposed by President Biden. And as you can see, the justices were again divided along the same kind of party lines. We can go on to the next slide. So as you can see in this chart, the average cost of attending a public and a private school in the United States has only increased over the last few decades. And if you just look at the 10-year period from like 2009 to 2019, 2020, the cost of attending a private school has increased $10,000. And that's a lot of money if you're just looking at the average. Let's move on to the next slide. So right now, Americans owe $1.75 trillion in student debt, which has only increased just like how the cost of attendance has increased for schools. And how would have the student loan forgiveness program helped borrowers? So the second chart here shows that, if $10,000 were forgiven, it would have freed 12.8 million people from their student debt. If $80,000 on the other end was forgiven, then it would have reached about 36.2 million people completely freed of their student debt. So just a bit of background on what the student loan forgiveness program was. According to Biden's proposal, borrowers meeting certain income thresholds would have been eligible for the forgiveness of their federal student loan debt. Individual borrowers who earned less than $125,000 in either 2020 or 2021, as well as married couples or heads of households earning less than $250,000 per year could have had up to $10,000 of their debt forgiven. And if a qualifying borrower had received a federal Pell Grant during their college enrollment, they would have been eligible for up to $20,000 of debt forgiveness. So what is a Pell Grant? It's a grant that's awarded to low-income students based on factors such as family size, income, and college costs. And it's often these students who face difficulties repaying their student loans and are more likely to default. Let's go on to the next slide. Okay, so who would have benefited from the program that was overturned? The Biden administration estimated that approximately 20 million borrowers would have had their entire federal student loan balance forgiven. And an independent analysis kind of revealed that 2/3 of the student debt cancellation would have benefited households that were earning less than $88,000, so more of the low-income families. So what was the Supreme Court case? The forgiveness program that was proposed had an estimated cost of $400 billion, but a coalition of Republican-led states and conservative groups challenged the administration, and they argued that the executive branch lacked the authority to implement such widespread student debt cancellation, which is what the Supreme Court ruled in favor of. So on Friday, June 30th, just months before student loan payment was scheduled to restart after being on pause for 1 year, the court decided to block this program and concluded, like the opposition, that President Biden had overstepped his authority. They ruled that they will no longer allow, the program to eliminate the $400 billion in debt. So what happens now? Student loan payments are going to restart in October 2023, but President Biden did announce that there will be a 12-month on-ramp period, which means that you won't have the harsher consequences of missed or late payments for this 12-month period if you're struggling to pay. So this means that you won't have an impact on your credit reports, and like nobody's going to try to force the payment out of you. But the drawback is that interest will continue to increase over this remaining time period. So if you are missing payments, your total is only going to increase. So if you're able to make a payment, they really encourage that borrowers make those payments. What can student loan borrowers do? So reaching out to loan servicers with any questions about remaining balance, their payment schedule and payment period, and then also discussing whether an income-driven repayment plan would be possible. So any adjustments made based on their income and their family size to make it easier to make those payments. And then we can go on to the next slide, but I do want to address that what this kind of tells students who are not yet college students yet, or who are still in the process of applying, is to look for scholarships to help cover a lot of your costs, so you don't have to borrow a lot of money, because it is now more difficult to make those payments, especially with increasing college costs. Keep your options open, have a lot of target schools, because if you do apply to a lot of reach schools, you might not get into any or all of them, and that might leave you with only a few options, which might not have great financial aid packages for you. So if you have applied to schools that are within your target range, within your stats and your extracurriculars, where you have a great shot of attending, if you have a lot of those acceptances, you might find a financial aid package that is going to be more suitable for your financial situation, and that's not going to create a burden for you over the next 4 years. Yeah, and then we can move on to the Q&A.
Thank you all again for this fantastic presentation on student loan forgiveness. The first question we have from the group: how important of an impact does sophomore year make when it comes to college admissions? I think this goes back to the grades question and what are colleges really looking for, 10th grade, 11th grade, types of courses, academic rigor, leadership, whatever you want to share about what you'd advise to sophomores.
In general, the idea is colleges look at all 4 years of high school. So there's a common misconception that they mainly focus on 11th grade, like right before you apply to colleges. That is a false statement. They do look at all 4 years, but the main important thing is you consistently show academic rigor, trying to sustain like good grades. Having 1 or 2 falls is completely fine. That's okay. Like, people have their strong points, but generally you need to maintain a specific GPA and specific like course rigor. But yeah, I think, Sadia, if you have anything else to add.
Yeah, also your sophomore year is important for getting involved in extracurriculars if you're not already involved in it. It's good to start early so that you can get the experience needed for potential leadership positions later on in the organization that you do join. So if you haven't joined any freshman year, which might be more okay, you should definitely be involved in your extracurricular activities during your sophomore year, so that you have that like long-term experience with those specific activities that you can later show on your application.
Oh, Ivan, I think you're muted.
Thank you so much. We have another question. The questions are starting to trickle in for the student loan forgiveness program. We have about 10 minutes left in today's webinar. We want to make sure we can get everyone's questions in. So once again, from Alexandra Stamatov, Regarding income-driven payment plans, have you heard that the administration is promoting a new such plan that will offer 5% payments? There are a lot of. Have you heard of this proposed way to help?
I have not looked into that yet, but I can look more into it right now. Yeah, we can take any more questions if they're coming up. I'm not sure if Sabia or Ivan are familiar with this.
I am not. It appears to be very new, just because they are talking about it from the Wall Street Journal, reported on a podcast, so it seems more recent. Just for a show of hands, are most of the audience students, families, or both? If you don't mind typing in. In my home, I have two children in the 5th grade and the rising 3rd grade, 6th grade and 3rd grade. And one of the ways that we are trying to, scratch our heads and figure out how to get around these big tuitions is whether it's a low cost college payment plan, like a 529 plan sponsored by New York State. Some families are able to put away a little bit there, and that can help grow. A college plan, it's a public product, it's not a private thing at all. So that's one way that we're trying to shore up just enough. Secondly, we are thinking about merit-based scholarships. There's always lots of scholarships, whether they're private scholarships or university-based or corporation-based. And our financial aid chapter, our lecture on that, we're going to have one in August where we'll be covering that. We have one from a parent. Is student loan forgiveness only here in New York State or all over? If you want to describe, there's federal loans. There's also different types of loans, federal, private ones, Stafford, Perkins. Without going into too much detail about that right now, how does this relate to state versus a national application?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
The chat box says the student loan forgiveness. The fact that student loan forgiveness is not passing due to the Supreme Court ruling, that affects people with federal student loans across the United States, including New York State. But is there anything? Are there any exceptions in New York State, or is there anything else that, as New York State residents, we can seek out? If you want to add to your question, Ms. Divya, we are more than happy to have you do that. And if you don't want to switch screens, that's fine. In case you want to share the screen once we find it, it's all up to you.
All right. I think Sabia is currently looking at New York State specific student loan forgiveness, but yes, because it's been blocked, the federal loan applies to all, like across the country, to everybody. So it will affect everyone who is borrowing for their education. I did look into the SAVE plan, which is I think the 5% payment plan, and it seems to really be a very generous loan repayment plan. So borrowers that are earning less than $32,000 individually or less than $67,500 for a family would see $0 for a monthly payment. So I guess it's like stratified based on like what your income is, which might be very helpful for a lot of borrowers.
With that, I'd like to, we are about 4 or 5 minutes left till the top of the hour, till the end of this webinar. If it's okay, I'll share my screen to the audience. We just wanted to make sure we all know what's coming down the pipeline, what's going to be free in our efforts to get everyone, the right information on time. So we wanted to just quickly share. If you're able to see the screen, you should be able to see a little bit about our college admissions program. Please confirm to the directors, to the leaders. We have 3 versions of the program that students can take advantage of. One is a very low cost pace yourself option at home. One's a digital program option where our counselors, Ms. Sadia and Ms. Sabiha, will be working with students individually throughout the college applications process. And of course, there's also an in-person option. All of that's available on our website. All the information can be found, but we do want to invite everyone to our free webinar that we're going to have this Saturday. This Saturday, we're going to have a free webinar, another in-person workshop, and we'll be led by Ms. Sadia and Ms. Sabiha. If you folks don't mind telling us a little bit about what we're going to be talking about, college admissions and requirements and college timeline, we will re-invite everyone who's visited today to that. It's going to be this Saturday, most likely around 3 p.m. So I'll ask the counselors to tell us a little bit about that as we wrap up tonight's webinar. Thank you.
So to start off with, as Ivan mentioned, we will be talking about admission requirements and timeline. So what exactly does that entail? Admission requirements, there's a lot to it. It's a very gigantic process, and it starts technically from the start of high school, but the actual putting it down on paper starts right now for seniors. So we wanted to kind of take the time to approach all aspects of the application, from essays to test scores to classwork and rigor, extracurriculars, and how exactly can we approach that and kind of framing it into a feasible timeline. So not just the one that's given to you by Common App, but what's a way in which you can successfully apply to schools and have the best possible application.
Yeah, thank you, Sabiha. And this is actually a great time to start learning about what it's going to look like. It's early summer, and our timeline does emphasize starting up early in the summer, actually in your junior spring, but when you do come, you will see that. And also we'll have multiple case studies sprinkled throughout the 2 different presentations. So that will kind of help you understand what we really mean and how, if you're at the points where our highlighted students are in our case studies, what you can do to tackle whatever situation you're in. But yeah, thank you.
So I'd like to remind everyone that we're going to have a few different free community workshops for all families. The next one will be, again, on July 15th. We are scheduling one for Saturday, July 29, around 3 p.m. That will be on college essays, supplemental essays, the personal statement, everything you need to know to have a great presentation of who you are. And by August, we will have a presentation on the financial aid portion. These are all complimentary for all families, both at cons and any other families that you want to invite to our community-based workshops, which are all free. And we really, really hope to have tonight's webinars on our YouTube channel for all of you. Until then, I see a few questions come in, and I'll pass it over to the counselors and Ms. Sadia and Sabiha. We've had a very, very busy week here at Conservatorial with a lot of students coming back, gearing up. For any folks that are going on to the 11th grade, just remember the 2024 SAT will be all digital. And in the meantime, in the summer, we really hope you are using this time to complete as many extracurriculars, gain your leadership opportunities, and so many other aspects that are important to the application process. Back to you, counselors.
Well, Sadia and Alexander already addressed it in the chat. I'll just quickly go over and summarize what's in the websites. But fly-in programs, for context who doesn't know what it is when you can apply for a school to fly you into their school and kind of take a college tour and see what it's like and live on campus for a day and kind of be a college student. Fly-in programs are generally, you have to apply for them. The applications are open around the August to September range, and they actually take place from September to December, anytime within then. Usually they're free, but they do have a selective application process. So if you do plan on doing that, apply beforehand.
It looks like that. Oh, more questions coming in. Great job. We love more questions. Go for it. Thank you to the counselor.
It depends school for school. So I would look on either of the websites, the one that Alexandra put or Sadia. There are specific schools mentioned, but If there's one that you plan on, you definitely have to check the school site. For example, MIT has a fly-in, but that one is reserved just for seniors. But then there are some that are open. So definitely check in. Oh, and then to the second part of the question that I never addressed, about colleges in New York City, once again, very based on each school, but it is listed for a lot of schools that you do have a higher chance of getting in if you aren't from that state, because they want to see students from other states explore their school. So still possible, but depends.
To the counselors, does it seem like those are the most of the questions? You just had to jump in and out in person. All right, everyone. Of course, thank you to all the family members. The college application process is really a whole family, counselor, school leader kind of thing. Students should not be in the driver's seats alone. They do need the support and the nurture of their families to ensure that these important decisions that'll affect our livelihoods, our future careers, how much it'll all cost, if it's a good fit for us. We really believe it takes the entire family unit for that. We're so excited to have this chance to work with Ms. Sadia and Ms. Sabiha as they're revamping and rapidly bringing our college admissions program to all of you. Please keep a lookout on your emails. We will send out a link if you enjoyed today's free webinar. Please do leave us a 5-star Google review. The more reviews we have, the better we can have more of these and make them more of a regular thing, all for free. We can't wait to see all of you back on Saturday for the admissions requirements and college timeline slide sets that our counselors have been building. We can't wait to have that conversation with so many of you. We'd really love to have you all back. And I see you have some questions coming in. Ms. Sadia, Ms. Sabiha, we'll have this last question and we can't wait till reconnect with everyone on Saturday.
To address, I believe it's for Riha's question about when you apply to ED for school, do you need to be confident you'd get in? No, because technically what people tend to drive forwards for ED is, of course, you should compare your stats with the school. And if you fall within that range, there's a chance that you can get in. But a lot of these schools that people usually apply ED are selective institutions. And because they have a higher acceptance rates during early, people feel more confident in. So I think my biggest advice is, one, looking at financial agreement. Do you think it's financially feasible for you to ED to a school? Two, do you generally see yourself at the school and you'd be satisfied if you got in and you had to go, you'd be happy with that decision? And three, I think for the ED round, don't be scared to apply to a school because you do still have RD and a lot of them have similar acceptance rates. So I think it's one on a case-by-case basis and it really is independent of you.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I caught everything Sabiha said. I had to step up for a minute, but I think you don't have to be confident that you would get in. You just have to be confident that if you do get in, you are going to attend that school because you are bound to it. So if you're applying ED, make sure that it's where you want to be.
Amazing questions, amazing participation. A lot of positives and some warnings around applying an early decision, and that will be a part of future free workshops. So it's all for free for everyone who was able to make the time like we did tonight. And on that, I have a quick link that I sent out to the counselors. I'm not sure if we're able to get the link here. Sadia put a link here to one of it's our Google reviews. We'd really appreciate a 5-star Google review for our counselors and our efforts today. We hope that this is a recurring thing throughout the next 3 to 6 months as you all put your college applications together, and any word of mouth referrals and positive messages and wishes for our team will go a long way as we get ready for the college admissions season. So we can't wait to see you all on Saturday, July 15th, 3 p.m. And we'll be getting you all the registration information for a very similar session to this. If you're a consultorial student and you happen to be here for your SAT class from 10:30 to 2:30, We'll have some food arrangements ahead of, between 2:30 and 3. Get yourselves comfortable, and we'll get a chance to watch and be part of that live lecture in person from me and our counselors straight from Massachusetts and wherever we're lucky to have them signing in from. All right, everyone, have a great night. Be safe, everyone. And we can't wait to see you all on Saturday for the next webinar, college workshop, free to all families. Please share with your friends, and we really, really appreciate the positive 5-star reviews. Have a great one, everyone.